Hope you've had a good weekend and you're getting ready to come to class tomorrow. Tomorrow in class, we're going to spend the day doing problem 3-8B, which will take us through the entire accounting cycle. In order to get prepared for this problem and so that we have enough time to do it, I'm going to set you up, get you ready to come into class. I'm going to do the regular journal entries. I'm going to do the trial balance for you. I'm going to show you how to fill out your form so when you come into class, we can pick up right up with the adjusting entries on Monday. The first thing I'd like you to do is to fill out your T accounts, which are on the second two pages on the stapled sheets that I gave you in class on Wednesday. You're going to need to list on the first page cash, accounts receivable, supplies, equipment, accumulated depreciation, accounts payable, utilities payable, and unearned revenue. On the second page, you need to list common stock, retained earnings, dividends, service revenue, salaries expense, utilities expense, supplies expense, and depreciation expense. Once you've done that, the next thing you want to do is put these beginning balances into each of the T accounts. So I'm going to walk you through that process. Cash has a beginning balance of $4,500. So again, you just go here. Remember, it's a debit balance because it's an asset. You're going to put balance. And then you're going to put $4,500 on the debit side of the cash account. We'll go to accounts receivable. We'll do the same thing. Balance, $9,500. Supplies has a debit balance of $3,500. Equipment has a debit balance of $36,000. Our contra asset accumulated depreciation has a credit balance of $8,000. Utilities payable has a credit balance of $6,000. Oh, that's accounts payable has a balance of $6,000. Utilities payable has a credit balance of $7,000. Unearned revenue has a zero balance. Common stock has a $23,000 credit balance. And retained earnings has a $9,500 credit balance. The other accounts don't have a balance to start with, so you can just leave them like that. And when we get to it, as we work through the problem, we'll put those balances in. Again, I took those accounts and their balances right from the top of the problem, which shows us the general ledger of Piper's Plumbing at January 1st, 2015, and the following account balances. Once you've done that, the next step is that we need to do several transactions for the year. And they call them summary transactions. And the only thing that means is that they've taken, instead of having us do each individual sales transaction, they've put them all together for us. So we're just going to record them one at a time. I don't have a date for these transactions. So in the date, I'm going to put the number of the transaction from the problem. And again, these are just the chronological journal entries that we've done. Sorry about that. Poppy really wants to be a student in 116A, and she tries very hard to answer the questions correctly, in spite of the fact she has no idea what she's talking about. All right, we're going to start with the first summary transaction. Number 1, provide plumbing services for cash, $20,000, and on account for $65,000. So for number 1, we're going to debit cash for $20,000, which means we had customers pay us $20,000 in cash for services performed. In addition, we had customers who had services performed for them on account of $65,000. We add up the cash and the accounts receivable, and that gives us the total amount to be credited to service revenue of $85,000. So that's the first journal entry. Number 2, collect on accounts receivable $53,000, and this means that of the accounts receivable that our customers owe us during the accounting period, we collected cash, so we're going to debit cash for $53,000. In exchange for that, we need to reduce the amount in our accounts receivable account with a credit of $53,000. Number 3, issue shares of common stock in exchange for $11,000 cash. Again, we've talked about this. When we sell common stock, To investors, we get cash in exchange for giving up ownership in the company. So we're going to debit cash $11,000 and we're going to credit common stock for $11,000. Number 4, we pay salaries for the current year of $33,000. Those salaries are going to be debited as salaries expense for $33,000, and we're going to credit cash because we use that term pay, and remember that pay means that we have used cash to pay that amount off. For number 5, we pay for utilities expenses $13,000, of which $7,000 represents costs for 2014. This means that of the total $13,000 that we pay on utilities payable, $7,000 of that is going to be attributed to utilities from the prior year. So we're going to debit utilities payable from 2014 for $7,000, and that's going to reduce that asset amount for us. We are going to recognize utilities expense for 2015 of $6,000, and we're going to credit cash for the full $13,000. For number 6, we receive cash in advance from customers of $10,000. When our customers pay us in advance, we're going to debit cash to increase the asset cash account. But at the same time, we also have to record that debit unearned revenue to show that we owe those services to our customers. Unearned revenue of $10,000. And then the last one of these journal entries is we're going to pay $3,000 cash dividends to stockholders. So for number 7, we're going to have a debit to dividends of $3,000, and we're going to credit cash for $3,000. Once you've completed these journal entries, we now need to post them to the T accounts that we have in the last 2 pages of the handout. All right, the next step is that we need to post these summary transactions from the general journal to the T accounts so that we can make that unadjusted trial balance. We're looking at number 1. We had a debit to cash of $20,000. So I'm going to put number 1, and I'm going to enter $20,000 onto the left side of the cash account. And I'm also going to put a check mark there just so I know that I've actually recorded it and posted it to the T accounts. I'm going to do the same thing to accounts receivable. I'm going to enter $65,000 on the debit side of accounts receivable. And then I'm going to go to my service revenue T account. And I'm going to enter $85,000 in on the credit side. And I'm going to follow the same process for all of the other 6 journal entries we made. Again, for cash, number 2, I'm going to put a debit of $53,000 on the left side of the cash account. I'm also going to put a credit onto the left side, on the right side of accounts receivable to show that I had to reduce that asset because I received cash in exchange for it. Number 3, I'm going to put a debit onto the cash side of the account of $11,000. And then I'm going to find my common stock account. There it is. And I'm going to put $11,000 onto the credit side of that account. Again, since we don't have dates, you see I'm just using the numbers of the transactions from the problem. For the 4th one, we have salaries expense, so I need to increase salaries expense with a debit of $33,000. And I need to reduce cash by $33,000 by crediting that side of the cash account. For number 5, I'm going to debit utilities payable for $7,000. And you can see here we started out with a beginning balance of $7,000 in utilities payable. That referred to that 2014 utilities payable that we discussed in the problem. We also need to recognize utilities expense for 2015, and I'm going to do that by putting a debit onto the utilities expense account. And finally, I'm going to credit cash by $13,000. We've got 2 left. I'm going to increase cash with a debit by $10,000 for that unearned revenue that we received from our customers. And I'm going to credit unearned revenue to show that that account has increased. And then the final regular journal entry that we have to deal with is I'm going to make a debit to dividends of $3,000 and a credit to cash of $3,000. And now what I've done is I've posted all of my summary journal entries. I've now got my accounts, and the next step they want me to do is to prepare the adjusted trial balance. So the first thing I have to do is I have to come up with the balance of each of these accounts. Remember, as I've said in the past, what we do is we take all the increases from an account and then we subtract from that all the decreases. So when we're looking at cash, we started with a balance of $4,500. And I'm going to add $20,000. I'm going to add $53,000. I'm going to add $11,000. And I'm going to add $10,000. So those were all my increases to that side of the account. And I'm going to subtract $33,000, $13,000, and $3,000. Hopefully I hit all the right numbers, and I didn't. So now I have to do it over. My numbers are wrong. I hate it when that happens. All right, let me start over. 4,500 plus 20,000 plus 53,000 plus 11,000 plus 10,000. And then from that, I'm going to subtract 33,000 minus 13,000 minus 3,000. There we go, $49,500. So remember when I was in class last week, I said whenever you have an addition or a subtraction problem, make sure you check your math first, because that's typically where we make the mistake. So cash currently has a balance of $49,500. I need to balance out my accounts receivable account. I'm going to start with the beginning balance of $9,500 debit. I'm going to add the $65,000 in debits from the summary transaction, and I'm going to subtract $53,000 from that to arrive at the current debit balance of $21,500. Supplies is easy peasy, $3,500 debit. My equipment has a $36,000 debit balance. Cumulative depreciation, $8,000 debit balance. Accounts payable has a $6,000 credit balance. Sorry, accumulated depreciation was a credit balance. Utilities payable, I now have a zero balance. Unearned revenue has a $10,000 credit balance. Turn the page here. For common stock, I currently now have a $34,000 credit balance. Retained earnings has a $9,500 credit balance. Dividends has a $3,000 debit balance. Service revenue, an $85,000 credit balance. Salaries expense, $33,000 credit balance. And utilities expense, $6,000. So there we've managed to we've journalized our transactions, we've posted each of the transaction to the related T accounts, and we've balanced out those accounts, which allows you to do the third thing that I'd like you to do before coming to class tomorrow, and that is doing the trial balance, the first trial balance. And if you look at that sheet that I handed out to you, you'll notice that it's going to have several different columns on it. Instead of having you do the trial balance on several different pages, I put it on what we call a worksheet. So you'll see that I've listed all the accounts here that we're going to use. These first two columns are for the trial balance. That's the unadjusted trial balance. When we make the adjusting entries, we're going to record them here in the next two columns, and then we'll do the adjusted trial balance, and then we'll take the information for the income statement and the balance sheet, and we've got it all on one sheet of paper. But for tonight, all you have to do to be ready for class tomorrow is take the balances here and transfer them into the trial balance and make sure that our debits equal our credits. So again, it's just copying things over. Cash has a $49,500 debit balance, so we're going to put $49,500 in the debit column for cash. We're going to put $21,500 into the debit column for accounts receivable. $3,500 in the debit column for supplies, $36,000 into the debit column for equipment, $8,000 into the credit column for accumulated depreciation, and that's really the first time we've seen it show up on anything so far for us. Accounts payable has a $6,000 credit balance. Utilities payable has a zero balance. Unearned revenue has a $10,000 credit balance. Common stock has a $34,000 credit balance. Retained earnings has a current $9,500 credit balance. Dividends has a $3,000 debit balance. Service revenue, $85,000 credit balance. Salaries expense is $33,000. Utilities expense is $6,000. Supplies expense is $0. And depreciation is $0. And hopefully Poppy will remain quiet while we finish balancing these out. Again, remember the trial balances just show us that our debits equal our credits, and I do believe I've done everything correct, but we're going to go through and add it up anyways. First, we'll add up the debit side, $49,500 plus $21,500 plus $3,500 plus $36,000 plus $3,000 for dividends, plus $33,000 for salaries expense, plus $6,000 for utilities expense. Fingers crossed. $152,500, which is the correct amount. Whoops. I want to put that here in totals. We'll use that net income figure and retained earnings later when we're working on one of the other items. We need to make sure that the credit side also equals $152,500. So we've got $8,000 plus $6,000 plus $44,000 plus $9,500 plus $85,000. $152,500. So once you've done that, you're ready to come to class tomorrow. We're going to pick up with the adjusting journal entries. And so we're just going to pick up right where we wanted to with this chapter. We'll finish this problem, and wherever we finish this problem is where I'll end up for material that can be tested on Wednesday. And I'll also give you a review for the test tomorrow at the end of class. Have a great evening.